The Duchess of Sussex has been praised by baby loss charities for shining a global spotlight on miscarriage. In an article for the New York Times, Meghan described a sharp cramp. "I knew as I clutched my firstborn child," she wrote, "that I was losing my second." Health workers say stigma can leave parents suffering in silence. I spoke to two women who've been through the ordeal, Jane Garvey of Woman's Hour, and Olivia Blake, the Labour MP who told me her miscarriage in August was complicated by the pandemic.
I rang my GP because I was a bit concerned, and they sent me to A&E, which is unusual anyway, but a lot of women seem to be directed to A&E at the moment. And because of the policies of A&E, my partner wasn't able to come in to the hospital with me. He had to wait in the car park whilst I was seen. It was quite a significant amount of time that I was waiting on my own, and then receiving the information on my own was obviously very difficult, and then had to go out into the car park and explain to my husband exactly what had happened, which is obviously a very difficult and much more difficult than it needed to be, really.
I had 3 miscarriages, and the first one I had was the first time I'd ever been pregnant. So, by the way, Olivia, I'm so sorry you've been through this, and I hope it will get better, but you probably still feel really raw and horrible about it. So I'm sorry it happened. It's a horribly confusing and rather bleak time in your life. And I'm really grateful that people like Olivia are now prepared to talk about it, and Chrissy Teigen and the Duchess of Sussex. I think it's really good that public figures are now saying this really terrible thing happened to me. And I don't think terrible is overstating it, because it's a very lonely experience to go through. And even if you have the most supportive partner in the world, actually, it's still happening to you. And quite frankly, it's happening to your body. And it's quite a messy and bloody business. And I think you only dismiss miscarriage as nothing much to write home about if you've never had one.
Do you feel that the public policy could change in a positive direction, that there's enough expertise, that people know the direction in which we could see progress?
I mean, I really hope so, and I hope that this kind of can act as a turning point this year, because I think so many people are talking about this now, and that's got to be positive. But I do think we do need to see much more research into the reasons that miscarriage does occur. A lot of women's health is kind of understudied and undervalued, and we need to see a refocusing on that because of how common these issues are.
Did anybody say anything really fatuous and stupid to you, Olivia?
I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think with any kind of loss, people don't necessarily know what to say. But I think the real trouble, in particular during this COVID pandemic, was, the doctor wasn't able to offer me any physical support. She couldn't give me a hug. All she could offer me was a tissue. And then she was clearly uncomfortable because she couldn't comfort me and left the room. So I was left alone in a room. The isolation feeling, I think, is 10 times worse at the moment, because I think, just the simple stuff of, offering someone a hand to hold, it is just not available.
Yeah, no, actually, I honestly hadn't really thought about that. The fact that they couldn't, because I think everybody has had that comfort from a nurse who does just put their arm around you when the scan tells you the thing you don't want to hear. I'm really sorry. That sounds horrible.
Inevitably, it also puts me in the mind of the father in the situation like this. Firstly, generally, and secondly, in lockdown, in the car park. What kind of impact is it proven to have on men? Have you researched this, Olivia? Is there a different set of needs for the father, or is it something that both parents deal with together, do you think?
I think that, there is that togetherness, certainly, but I think that the real challenge is trying to answer questions. And, my husband is very, very interrogatory, I'd say, in terms of trying to understand things. So it was difficult because I was very emotional and unable to answer his questions, and I think that actually has had quite a lasting impact because he never got that opportunity to kind of ask some of the basic questions that he wanted to ask, and I think that has really made it difficult for him to kind of deal with it. So seeing it firsthand, is one of the reasons I wanted to speak up about this, because not only is it awful for women going through this, partners stood looking at walls that they can't go through to be with their loved one when they know that the information they might be getting is probably the worst news they'll hear
I hope if Megan's experience has done anything, it's just proved that you can be the richest woman on earth, and the thing you probably want more than anything eludes you. What it illustrates is this can happen to everybody. Every single pregnancy potentially could end this way. And as Olivia points out, it's a very, very common experience. But actually, of course, most women don't have miscarriages. And I wonder whether there's still a little bit of reluctance on the part even of women to really want to know about it, because it's a pretty horrible thing to go through, and particularly in the way Olivia had to go through it.
Is there anything in the human mind that makes it feel like failure?
No, I think it does feel like you feel that your body has failed. I think that probably is true. And of course it isn't that at all, but I totally understand why anybody in Olivia's position might feel that is the way they might be thinking of it. But Olivia really shouldn't. I don't know that is the way she's thinking, but if that is the way she's thinking, it's nature in its cruelest form, I guess, and we know it happens in all parts of the natural world. This is not just humans that go through this, is it?
Yeah. I think it's really important that I would call it guilt, and I think I've certainly on my worst days found myself questioning really silly things that would that have made the difference? Would that have prevented it? And I think the truth is that no one can really answer those questions, but I think we should be much more open about this so that people don't sit there alone asking themselves those questions, and that we're able to talk about this, and we are able to take the kind of stigma and the guilt away from people who are experiencing this, and women who are facing this alone at the moment, I think deserve that kind of compassion as a community, really.
With thanks to Olivia Blake speaking last, and Jane Garvey, our colleague on Radio 4.